Welcome to the Federal Aviation Administration's, or FAA's, public meeting for the revised draft environmental assessment for the SpaceX Starship Super Heavy Vehicle Increased Cadence at the Boca Chica launch site in Cameron County, Texas, also known as the revised draft EA. The next series of slides will provide an overview of the project. The FAA is evaluating Space Exploration Technologies Corporation's, or SpaceX's, proposal to increase the number of launches and landings per year, or cadence, of its Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle at SpaceX's existing Boca Chica launch site in Cameron County, Texas. SpaceX must obtain a new license or modification of their current license from the FAA to launch and land the Starship and Super Heavy vehicles and to use their associated launch systems more frequently than originally analyzed in the 2022 Final Programmatic Environmental Assessment. Therefore, the FAA is analyzing the potential environmental impacts of the increased cadence in the revised draft EA. The completion of the environmental review process does not guarantee that the FAA will issue a license modification to SpaceX. SpaceX must also meet the FAA's safety, risk, and financial responsibility requirements. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, is a federal law that requires federal agencies to consider the potential environmental impacts of proposed actions subject to federal control or responsibility before a decision is made. FAA decisions to license commercial space operations and to close associated airspace are proposed actions subject to NEPA. Agencies follow a rigorous process before making a final decision. This process includes consideration of a range of alternatives, potential environmental or health consequences, public input, tribal or government consultation, and comments provided on draft documents. The analysis of environmental consequences can be presented in an environmental assessment, or EA. An EA is a concise document used to describe the anticipated environmental impacts and determine whether the action has the potential to significantly affect the human environment. The NEPA process concludes when the FAA publishes either a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, a FONSI with mitigation commitments, sometimes called a mitigated FONSI, or a notice of intent to prepare an environmental impact statement, or EIS, that would continue the environmental review. A FONSI may be accompanied by a record of decision, or ROD. In May 2014, the FAA prepared an EIS evaluating the environmental impacts of the FAA issuing a launch license and/or experimental permits to SpaceX to construct and operate a launch site and to launch their Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and other reusable suborbital launch vehicles from privately owned property in Cameron County, Texas. The FAA then prepared a Programmatic Environmental Assessment, or PEA, in June 2022. The PEA analyzed the environmental impacts of constructing launch-related infrastructure and launching and landing the Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle at Boca Chica in Cameron County, Texas. The 2022 PEA analyzed up to 5 annual suborbital launches of the Starship vehicle, up to 5 launches of the Starship Super Heavy vehicle, up to 10 annual landings of the Starship vehicle, and 5 annual landings of the Super Heavy vehicle. Since the 2022 PEA, SpaceX has provided the FAA with additional information regarding Starship Super Heavy's operations, including additional landing areas, deluge operations, heat shield disposal locations, and clarifications to sonic boom analyses. As a result, the FAA prepared a written reevaluation in April 2023, November 2023, and October 2024, evaluating whether supplemental environmental analysis was needed based on the new information. In each written reevaluation, the FAA concluded that changes to the proposed action and new circumstances or information relevant to environmental concerns presented by SpaceX were not substantial, and the underlying assumptions of the 2022 PEA remained valid. In March 2024, SpaceX proposed to modify their vehicle operator license to land the Starship vehicle in the Indian Ocean to accommodate new trajectories. The FAA subsequently prepared a tiered environmental assessment and FONSI ROD. The FAA determined modifying SpaceX's license would not significantly impact the quality of the human environment and additional environmental analysis was not required. This current EA evaluates SpaceX's proposal to increase the number of annual Starship Super Heavy launches and landing operations, or cadence, and addresses vehicle upgrades. This EA provides a tiered environmental review, which incorporates the impacts and analysis regarding the vehicle and its operation from the PEA, while focusing on the operations and associated impacts for the increased cadence and vehicle upgrades not previously analyzed. The draft EA was revised to incorporate new information regarding compliance of the proposed action with the Clean Water Act and adjust the proposed action to reduce the significance of noise impacts associated with operations. A March 13, 2024 administrative order, AO, issued by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and an August 2, 2024 investigation report by TCEQ found that prior deluge water discharges were not permitted and thus violated the Clean Water Act. In response to the AO and investigation report, SpaceX submitted a permit application on July 1, 2024, and entered into agreements with TCEQ and EPA to resolve the alleged violations. Information regarding these alleged violations and associated mitigations have been incorporated into the analysis of the EA. In response to potential significant impacts related to cumulative sonic boom effects, SpaceX and FAA adjusted the day-night split of proposed launch and landing activities. The revised proposed action would not result in significant impacts to noise or noise-compatible land use. The figure on this slide provides an overview of the FAA's licensing process for vehicle operators. The illustration showcases the different reviews that occur during each phase of the licensing process. The issuance or modification of a license, including renewals, by the FAA is considered a major federal action under NEPA. Thus, the FAA is analyzing the environmental impacts of the proposed issuance or modification of a commercial launch vehicle operator license for SpaceX Starship Super Heavy at Boca Chica, Texas, as well as temporary closure of associated airspace in an EA. The FAA's license determination process involves several aspects, which include safety, airspace and waterway integration, policy, payload, fiscal responsibility, and environmental reviews. This EA would fulfill the environmental review portion of the license evaluation and determination. The completion of the environmental review process, or the NEPA process, does not guarantee that the FAA will issue a license modification to SpaceX. Once the FAA does make a licensing determination, SpaceX may be required to meet additional monitoring and safety inspection requirements. The proposed action would take place at the Boca Chica launch site, located on SpaceX-owned property in Cameron County, Texas, near the cities of Brownsville and South Padre Island. The site is located in a sparsely populated coastal area adjacent to the Gulf of Mexico, surrounded by Boca Chica State Park and adjacent to the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge. The larger area includes several private and public industries. Boca Chica Village includes support infrastructure such as housing, restaurants, and offices used in connection with SpaceX's production and manufacturing facility near Boca Chica Village, as well as some private houses not owned by SpaceX. The launch site consists of the Vertical Launch Area, or VLA, approximately 2.2 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border and is controlled by the Launch and Landing Control Center, or LLCC. State Highway 4 provides access to the launch site and terminates adjacent to the VLA and Boca Chica Beach. The Starship Super Heavy vehicle is comprised of two stages. Super Heavy is the first stage, or booster, and Starship is the second stage. Together, the upgraded vehicle is approximately 150 meters, or 500 feet tall, and 9 meters, or 30 feet, in diameter. As designed, both stages are intended to be fully reusable for multi-missions and expected to have minimal post-flight refurbishment requirements. Starship is equipped with 9 Raptor engines, and Super Heavy is equipped with 35. The Raptor engines are powered by liquid oxygen, or LOX, and liquid methane. The below table provides specifications of the vehicles as analyzed in the 2022 PEA and this revised draft EA for comparison. A comparison of the launch and landing operations analyzed in the 2022 PEA and in the revised draft EA are summarized here and on the following slides. The 2022 PEA previously analyzed up to 150 seconds of licensed daytime Starship static fire tests and 135 seconds of licensed daytime Super Heavy static fire tests a year. During a static fire engine test, the vehicle engines are ignited for approximately 5 to 15 seconds and then shut down. Under the proposed action analyzed in the revised draft EA, SpaceX would conduct up to 90 seconds of licensed daytime Starship static fire tests and 70 seconds of licensed daytime Super Heavy static fire tests a year. Daytime refers to the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The 2022 PEA analyzed up to 5 annual suborbital launches of the Starship vehicle, up to 5 launches of the Starship Super Heavy vehicle, up to 10 annual landings of the Starship vehicle, and 5 annual landings of the Super Heavy vehicle. The revised draft EA analyzes an increase in SpaceX operations up to 25 annual Starship Super Heavy launches, 25 annual Starship landings, and 25 annual Super Heavy landings. Starship landing locations have also been updated since the 2022 PEA to accommodate new proposed trajectories. The revised draft EA removed Starship landings or disposal in the Gulf of Mexico from the current proposed action, while Starship landings on a floating platform or disposal in the Indian or the Pacific Ocean have been added since the 2022 PEA. There would be no changes in Super Heavy landing locations as the vehicle would land at the Boca Chica launch site or on a floating platform or disposed in the Gulf of Mexico. The revised draft EA assumes the proposal would not change limits on access restrictions for launch operations or in the event of an anomaly. SpaceX does not propose any additional operational access restrictions apart from those described in the 2022 PEA. In the beginning of the program, SpaceX estimated needing approximately 500 hours of temporary access restrictions annually for nominal or anticipated operations. However, since the 2022 PEA, there has been an 85% reduction in the number of access restrictions implemented during SpaceX launch and re-entry operations. This slide shows the current vertical launch area layout at the Boca Chica launch site. As discussed, SpaceX is proposing to increase Starship Super Heavy launch operations up to 25 annual launches. Starship Super Heavy missions would continue to include lunar and Mars missions and satellite payload missions. Approved launch trajectories would be based on specific launch vehicle performance and characteristics. SpaceX is not proposing any additional operational access restrictions to support launches apart from those described in the 2022 PEA. SpaceX also proposes to increase Starship Super Heavy landings to up to 25 Super Heavy and 25 Starship landings annually. SpaceX currently lands Super Heavy in the Gulf of Mexico and Starship in the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean and is proposing to expand potential landing sites of Starship. The revised draft EA analyzes the reasonably foreseeable environmental impacts of the following scenarios. SpaceX may land Super Heavy at the Vertical Launch Area, or VLA, on a drone ship, or direct the Super Heavy to be disposed of in the Gulf of Mexico. Additionally, Starship may land at the VLA, on a drone ship, or be disposed of in the Indian or Pacific Ocean. As SpaceX continues to develop the capability to perform a return to launch site landing, some vehicles may not be reused, and instead, SpaceX may direct the vehicles to fall into the ocean to be disposed under certain conditions. As the lead federal agency for this EA, the FAA is responsible for analyzing the potential environmental impacts of the proposed action and creating airspace closures to ensure public safety. The FAA requested cooperating agencies to participate in the NEPA process due to their special expertise or jurisdiction by law over the launch facility or maritime environment. Cooperating agencies for this revised draft EA include the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, and U.S. Coast Guard. The FAA also invited the Texas Historical Commission and Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to be participating agencies. These agencies were invited due to the location of the launch site relative to state-managed properties and their special expertise. The revised draft EA examines potential impacts of proposed alternatives on the human and natural environments. Potential environmental resources that are evaluated in the revised draft EA include those listed on this slide. The following 3 slides go into detail on specific resource categories of particular public interest. Biological resources include terrestrial, marine, and Endangered Species Act, or ESA listed species and habitat. The Endangered Species Act establishes protections for fish, wildlife, and plants that are listed as threatened or endangered. Taking into account the new information related to the proposed action, the FAA has determined that the proposed action would not result in significant terrestrial habitat and wildlife or marine resource impacts as SpaceX would continue to implement mitigation measures. The FAA is conducting formal consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or the service, to determine whether the proposed action may affect and is likely to adversely affect Endangered Species Act, ESA, listed species, and critical habitat, as well as with National Marine Fisheries Service, or NMFS, to determine whether the proposed action would adversely affect ESA-listed marine species or designated critical habitat. During formal consultation, the FAA shares information with the service and NMFS about the proposed action and the species or critical habitat that could be affected. Following formal consultation, a biological opinion would be issued, which would analyze the effects of the proposed action to ESA-listed species or critical habitat. Potential Section 4F resources include public parks, recreation areas, wildlife or waterfowl refuges of national, state, or local significance, and land of an historic site of national, state, or local significance. The FAA is evaluating the proposed action for potential significant impacts to 4F resources, including constructive use. Constructive use occurs when the impacts of a project on a Section 4F property are so severe that the activities, features, or attributes that qualify the property for protection under Section 4F are substantially impaired. At this time, the FAA has made preliminary determinations that temporary access restrictions, noise, sonic booms, and debris associated with the proposed action do not constitute a constructive use. Analysis is being conducted in accordance with FAA Order 1050.1F, and the FAA will consider all relevant data, public comments, and applicable requirements before reaching a conclusion in the final EA. The FAA will explain if any conclusions differ from those presented in the 2022 PEA and will disclose if it conducted any additional consultations. The proposed action would not result in any change from the conclusions in the 2022 PEA to limits on access restrictions, total duration of access restrictions, or hours of anomaly-related access restrictions to Section 4F resources. Despite noise-related changes associated with static fire engine tests, launches, landings, and potential for structural damage, no residents or members of the public would experience noise above the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's, or OSHA's, 115 decibel or dB threshold during a launch. The 115 dB LA max contour, which is used as a conservative limit for hearing conservation, extends approximately 1 mile from the launch pad and does not contain private residences. This is shown in the middle map. The map on the left of the slide shows the overpressure contours of sonic booms from super heavy landing. For sonic booms, at approximately 2 pounds per square foot, or PSF, there is a 1 in 10,000 probability of breakage for a large window, and at approximately 4 PSF, there is a 1 in 10,000 probability of breakage for a small window. People within the 6 PSF contour will most likely hear the sonic boom. Laboratory and field testing shows that pre-damaged or poor condition windows could possibly exhibit progression of damage over multiple exposures to this magnitude of boom. Overpressures within the 10 PSF contour reach the community of Tarpon Bend and the extreme south of South Padre Island, with overpressures between 6 and 10 PSF extending across populated portions of South Padre Island, Port Isabel, and southern Laguna Heights. At 10 PSF, the likelihood of superficial damage and window damage becomes more plausible, but is generally still expected to be very low probability and predominantly due to poor existing conditions such as pre-cracked, pre-stressed, older, or poorly mounted windows. Cumulative day-night average sound levels are calculated to convert sonic boom noise contours from PSF to a C-weighted day-night average sound level, or CDNL. This allows for a comparison to FAA's significance threshold in DNL. The FAA uses CDNL to assess cumulative annoyance from impulsive noise like sonic booms, while using other metrics to evaluate hearing loss and other noise-related health effects. The map on the right side of the slide shows the CDNL with the contour line showing 60 dBc. Based on the map, there are no noise-sensitive areas within the 60 dBc contour. Noise-sensitive areas include residential, educational, health, and religious structures and sites, parks, recreational areas, areas with wilderness characteristics, wildlife refuges, and cultural and historical sites. As described in the 2022 PEA, SpaceX will implement their public notification plan to educate the public and announce when a launch or landing event would occur. This slide displays the remaining major milestones of the EA schedule. The public comment period will close on January 17, 2025, after which the FAA will evaluate and incorporate comments into the final EA. The FAA will then issue a FONSI ROD, a mitigated FONSI ROD, or a notice of intent to continue the environmental review process and prepare an environmental impact statement. As previously discussed, there are multiple ways to submit comments. Comments may be provided verbally during this meeting to a court reporter, online at regulations.gov under docket ID FAA-2024-2006, or by mail to Ms. Amy Hansen, FAA Environmental Specialist, SpaceX EA C/O ICF 1902 Reston Metro Plaza, Reston, Virginia 20190, or delivered in written or verbal form during a public meeting. The FAA will consider and respond in the final EA to all substantive comments received or postmarked by no later than January 17, 2025. You may also subscribe to the project mailing list and view the revised draft EA at the project website, listed at the bottom of this slide. The FAA is seeking comments from the public concerning the accuracy of the revised draft EA, adequacy of the analysis, new information, alternatives not considered that meet the project's purpose and need, or additional areas where further clarification is needed. All substantive comments received, regardless of format or submission date, will be given full and equal consideration. This concludes the video presentation.
There we go. Aloha. My name is Linda Williams, and I'm from Hilo, Hawaii. My testimony tonight is primarily to demand that a full EIS be conducted. The expansion of the landing zones in the Pacific within the EE zone around Hawaii and in the areas around all the way through the Pacific are so much larger than in anything that was done in the 2022 PEA or the rewritten evaluation for landings, that a full EIS should be done. That would also trigger a Section 106 consultation with Native Hawaiians. Hawaiians are completely excluded from this environmental review process because of the FAA's claim that the proximity to Hawaii is insignificant. All of the Pacific is significant to Hawaii, and we must be included in the environmental review process. Now, there's many, many reasons why there should be a full EIS for the launch location in Boca Chica and for the people and residents who live there. As much as Elon Musk complains about overregulation, the FAA has been consistently lenient towards SpaceX and their licensing. So it's time for the FAA to stand up and do the right thing and do a full environmental review to look at the long-term consequences and the accumulative consequences and include all the stakeholders in this process. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Oh, no, I have another minute. I'm not done. I'm going to take it. I also believe that the FAA is in violation of NEPA requirements to make this process transparent and easily accessible to the public. This process is not easily accessible and transparent to the public. The pages of documents, and I've read them all, are over 1,000 pages because this tiered process means that it's building upon pre-existing assessments and analysis from multiple agencies. The way that it's written is very difficult to disentangle, and it's kind of just like creating a little hoop for the public to jump through. It isn't real evaluation. The timelines need to be extended for public comment and public review. Giving 30 days or 40 days for review is ridiculous. It's thousands of pages of documents that people in the industry expect to take 6 months to review. So I ask you, FAA, to please do your job, properly evaluate this new industry so that we don't have unintended consequences like the climate catastrophe we're living in or poisoning our oceans, and involve everyone who should be involved, and that's especially Hawaii. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for your comment. Our next speaker is Evan Moyle.
Hi there. So mine's maybe a bit overly philosophical, but I think if you kind of look at the history of humanity and you think, well, gee whiz, maybe there are 100 billion of our ancestors existed, and gee, if we can expand the scope and scale of consciousness to the stars, maybe there will be many hundreds of trillions or quadrillions more. And I love humanity, and I love all the creatures of Earth, and I think we could bring them with us and have a much brighter long-term future if we increase if we make it possible to achieve those ends. And I think it's really hard, and it might not happen. But this is one way, and maybe one of the only ways I can think of that we could really increase the scale. And I also just wanted to say thank you to anyone who lives near Starbase, near Boca Chica, who is inconvenienced. I really think you're taking one for the team, and I really appreciate you. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to read a letter that I did submit, so I'm just going to reread my letter. And it says, I'm writing to formally oppose the permit request for SpaceX Starship Super Heavy Cadence Increase at Boca Chica Permit 508. And it's more of a personal, I don't have any legal background or knowledge of the engineering specifics. So this is more of a personal, cultural letter. So Boca Chica holds deep cultural and personal significance to my family. My son's great-grandfather used to fish on Boca Chica Beach, and this tradition has been passed down for generations in my family. I have fond memories of spending time on the beach, enjoying its natural beauty, connecting with my family's heritage. Unfortunately, these cherished pastimes have come to an abrupt end because of the SpaceX operations. Access to Boca Chica has been severely restricted, depriving local families, including mine, the ability to enjoy the public space. My son, for instance, can no longer visit the beach to experience a tradition that was an integral part of my family. This loss is heartbreaking and erases a vital connection to our past. Additionally, the environmental impact on SpaceX activities is becoming increasingly apparent. Fish populations that once thrived near Boca Chica seem to have drastically declined. My son goes weekly and fishes on the jetties, and he has noticed, Mom, there's just no fish. There's no fish. The fishermen around us are saying there's no fish. The natural ecosystem, which supports local wildlife and recreational fishing, is under immense strain, threatening the balance of our unique coastal environment. The expansion and intensification of SpaceX activities pose further risk to the preservation of my beach, which is Boca Chica Beach. South Texas has a history of being exploited by politicians, by entrepreneurs, and I don't believe SpaceX has my people and my lands here in its best interest to colonize Mars. I don't think that is a valid reason, and that is it.
I have a home in Port Isabel on the bay, and I previously submitted comments in 2022 when the last EA was done, and even before that. I am still waiting for the FAA to do its job. At every turn, the FAA has allowed SpaceX to do whatever the hell it wanted to do without any regard for the residents and the wildlife in the area. Period. Full stop. This project demands and has demanded for quite some time a new environmental impact statement. The fact that you have piggy banked off of a 2014 study that was thrown together for a few very small rockets to supposedly cover the biggest and the most powerful rocket on the face of this planet to launch as close as 5 miles from where people live, from where our houses are. Our houses shake. It's crazy. I've never been through anything like this. And the fact that you are even considering doing increasing the cadence of this, further disrupting us, and then blaming homeowners and property owners in the area for any damage by stating that any damage that might occur is as a result of substandard building is just insulting. It's completely insulting. You need to do an environmental impact statement. You need to thoroughly assess the ongoing and repetitive motions, noises, the sonic booms. Now we're going to have the sonic booms on top of all of this to determine exactly what is going on and the long-term effects on people and on property, because you have failed miserably at every turn to do that. Also, this is going to occur right next to LNG plants. How exactly is this going to work when you have exploding rockets and you have LNG plants and LNG tankers coming through the channel? I second what the lady said about the fishing. The fishing has sucked since SpaceX has started to shoot off these rockets. There are fewer birds. The dolphins are lessened. It's just awful. My family can hear this thing in Harlingen. It stems well beyond Port Isabel. And it is outrageous that you canceled the public hearing in Port Isabel, because Port Isabel, Long Island Village, South Padre Island, Laguna Vista, Laguna Heights, those are the people that are most affected by this. And they should have ample opportunity to come and face you and put their thoughts on the record. Thank you. Do your job. We need an environmental impact statement, the whole thing. Do your job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I just have two brief comments. One comment is that Starship is the first completely reusable spacecraft, which will make it a lot more environmentally friendly than any other spacecraft before. And I think for this reason, the sooner it's developed, the better it is for the environment from that perspective. And my second comment is that every year there is a small, but is a non-zero risk that a meteor or asteroid hits Earth. Our planet has experienced such events several times over its lifetime, and such an event would have a dramatic, catastrophic consequences on the environment of the whole planet, not just Boca Chica. And if you want to face such a threat, if NASA wants to face it, we need fast and powerful access to space. And I view spaceship program as an insurance policy for NASA to address such a challenge. And I believe that the limited local impact on Boca Chica spaceport can be justified for this reason. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's David Dixon. I own a couple properties on the island. My wife and I run a business on South Padre Island. I mean, we're excited by what SpaceX does. It's exciting to see a liftoff. I know there's a lot of people that come to the island, and that's good. Our biggest concern is I've lived in Oklahoma where we've had earthquakes. This is the biggest earthquake every time they launch. We have one property that's has 20-foot windows, 4th floor. And to see those windows shake, I know it's doing long-term damage. It's not doing anything. It has nothing to do with the craftsmanship of the building. We also have a retail store that has 12-foot windows, and they probably bow 4 to 6 inches. And to think that SpaceX has no liability or there's no funds set aside to take care of the local community for damage just feels really irresponsible. So I don't know if it's a full environmental impact study, but we need to do something to find out how much the earth is shaking and how much responsibility SpaceX needs to share with the community that's going to be impacted. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dr. Sharon Wilcox, and today I'm going to be speaking to the impacts on local wildlife. We have a number of endangered and threatened species that occupy the area immediately at and around Boca Chica, including 5 species of endangered sea turtle, ocelots, jaguarundi, red knot, and other impacted species like Texas tortoise. So the draft DA mischaracterizes the biological impacts of the proposed action in a variety of ways. It states that these biological impacts would be comparable to those that were described in the previous PEA in 2022. However, it also acknowledges that there's going to be significant changes, including during launch activities. Noise would cause wildlife to be, quote, temporarily displaced and disturbed. However, the local surveys are clearly showing that wildlife is not returning to the site, and the impacts include incineration of nests. So the impacts really are further fully altering the lives and ranges of these threatened and endangered species. Given that substantial increase in launch frequency, we're expecting that these impacts are going to just get worse and worse. And for these reasons and many others that I will expand upon in my letter that I will submit this week, we believe that we must go to a full EIS to better understand the impacts of this activity that has already happened and the increased activity on the resident wildlife in the region. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Craig Nazer, Conservation Chair, Lone Star Chapter, Sierra Club. Water. Where is this water coming from for the deluge system? How much is used per launch? Who is paying for it and how much are they paying for it? This should be public information, but so far the city of Brownsville refuses to release this information. Brownsville, Texas is already under stage 2 drought restrictions, and climate change will make drought more likely. Without the public knowing the answers to such questions, how can we believe that water usage will have no negative effects on the people of Cameron County? Access. Already, closures that limit public access to one of the most affordable beach camping areas on the Texas coast have been severely limited. The biggest problem is that road access is not always predictable. This can greatly hamper the planning of a vacation trip to Boca Chica Beach, which limits public use. More launches means more unpredictable limits. Sound. Already, launch volume shakes houses 25 miles away from the launch site. This negatively affects humans in the area. My extensive experience with wildlife observations leads me to believe that these extremely loud sound levels will have a major negative effect on all wildlife within many miles of the launch site. Sound levels that do not damage human hearing is a very poor way to evaluate how damaging these levels might be to wildlife. South Texas has always made much of its revenue from ecotourism, particularly for birds. SpaceX promises lots of money to some people in a way that has already damaged such ecotourism. Ecotourism is sustainable. Environmental degradation is not. Ecosystems are usually not damaged all at once. They are slowly damaged bit by bit. Humans belong to Earth ecosystems. Mars does not have these ecosystems. Damaging the Earth and the ecosystems that make human life possible is a very benighted way to get to Mars. I think SpaceX needs a full EIS for any increase in launch frequency. Thank you for taking my comments.
Hi there. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Dr. Ryan McLeod. I'm a family doc and a space development advocate. I am in support of the increased cadence of launches from Boca Chica. I believe that if we have easier and cheaper access to space, it's going to allow all of humanity to benefit from using the resources of space to do many things, including helping to heal our ecosystem here on Earth. Certain technologies that are not affordable right now, but could be affordable, like space-based solar power, would be a game changer in terms of tackling the climate crisis and allowing us to turn off our carbon usage, including gasoline, coal, natural gas, what have you, and could support a majority of the baseload power needed for human civilization, not only within the developed world, but also would help to pull billions of people out of poverty within the developing world. In order for us to reach that point, though, it needs to get to the point where the cost of access to space is dramatically reduced in order for that to become a reality. And for that reason, I support an increased cadence from Boca Chica. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, my concern is over our foundations. I've been hearing all the comments and nobody's really been through earthquakes or they haven't said it. I've been through several earthquakes myself in other countries, and honestly these launches scare me to death. They scare my neighbors because our windows rattle. So how is our foundation protected? I know that there's people that have told me that live within a 50-mile radius of the launches that NASA has reached out to them to say if there's any cracks in your anything that will fix. However, what about, the other people that I don't live 15 miles from the launch site. And I still feel them, as this gentleman commented, that even in Harlingen, which is quite a few miles from Boca Chica, they feel the rattleness and the booms and everything. So to me, it's a small earthquake, and earthquakes cause foundations to move. They cause property damage. And I just, as I back up the wildlife too, I think that's detrimental. This is the 7th launch that's going to happen this week, and we're not looking forward to it. And I could just imagine 25 launches in a year. That means it's probably going to be twice a month. So that's all I have to say about it.
Good evening. So
Yes.
I'm RGV resident. And Boca Chica Beach is not just a vital ecosystem. It's home to endangered species like the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. It's also sacred land to the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas. This area, holds deep cultural and spiritual significance, and destruction through rocket debris, contamination, fires, all of that is honestly an affront to the tribe's heritage and traditions. The environmental damage caused by SpaceX is well documented, and yet cumulative impacts on this area just remain unaddressed. So there's frequent closures of the beach, which violate the Texas Open Beaches Act. It strips people of the Rio Grande Valley of their right to be in that space. Honestly, we've been exploited very many a time here in the RGV by white entrepreneurs. They have extracted our resources, displaced our communities, take a profit, and then leave. My family has been here for over 100 years, so we've seen things. The border has crossed our family. It's heartbreaking to see that we're kind of allowing this through several agencies. So, and to make matters worse, neither the FAA or SpaceX have made their public documents available in Spanish. We have a predominantly Spanish-speaking community, so this exclusion denies many the opportunity to engage in decisions that are directly impacting their lives. Just in conclusion, I just want to say I agree with others that have stated that we should conduct a full independent study to assess the long-term ecological, social, and cultural impacts of SpaceX's operations. I don't think that 25 launches a year is good for anybody that lives here, owns businesses here, has homes here. We need to ensure all public documents and notifications are translated and easily accessible in Spanish. And we also need to make sure we're honoring the significance of Boca Chica Beach to the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe.
Hi. Okay. I'm from Hawaii and I am Hawaiian. So we view our ocean as part of us, right? And so I have a couple of questions more than comments. When this ship is disposed in water, has the EPA or the National Fish and Wildlife taken in mind the effects of the ocean's health? Being that, is it gonna land where there's fish? Is it gonna hit a whale? Is it gonna ruin the coral? Will the disposed ship be removed, or will it just be there in the ocean, polluting the ocean, ruining the ecosystem of the ocean? And how can SpaceX assure us when disposing it's not gonna affect the fish? We eat our fish. We have a lot of fishermen that go out in these oceans. Will the falling disposed ship hit one of these fishing boats or a freighter? And also, I don't want to get really political, but now that Trump is going to be our president, Elon Musk has such a proximity to Trump. He's basically, he said he's the first buddy. How can we assure that this new administration isn't just going to deregulate anything? How can you as a agency assure us that it won't be dismantled and just be thrown away for all these billionaires to just destroy everything for their own profits, for their own pet projects? I mean, getting to Mars, whatever. I mean, only billionaires can do that. But how can we know that Elon Musk isn't going to have everything torn away because he has Trump's ear? He basically controls Trump. It's really, really scary. And we need to be assured that there's going to be some kind of protections for our protections, if that makes any sense. And yeah, we need independent reviews for not only Boca Chica, but for Hawaii, our oceans. And it shouldn't be just okayed because Trump is president and Elon Musk is a billionaire. That's about it. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Number one, Boca Chica is the worst coastal location in the United States for SpaceX activities. It is an incredibly unique, valuable, and sensitive ecosystem. It is the home to numerous threatened and endangered species. Nearly the entire place is conservation land. So basically, SpaceX bought a few postage stamp size lots sandwiched in between these actual conservation lands, and they built their rocket launch pad. Then they went and bought out the entire community of Boca Chica Village. They forced these people to sell their property to them. They paved the whole place, and it's now a giant rocket factory, smack up right next to the wildlife refuge and the state wildlife refuge and the state park. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. FAA. Okay, so here we go again. None of SpaceX's impacts at Boca Chica can't possibly be considered insignificant. FAA has found everything SpaceX wanted to do so far to be insignificant. That's outrageous and it's untrue. It's a lie. FAA's process, this mitigated FONSI, this tiered EA, multiple tiered EAs, it's piecemealing. It stands in contrast to the original intent of NEPA. It's outrageous, and it doesn't even meet the requirements of CEQ. Now, some details. Sonic booms. You guys have not properly disclosed the impacts of sonic booms. Traffic you've admitted is going to quadruple. It's already outrageous. Highway 4 is a mess. It's all from SpaceX, and you haven't said what the impacts of that will be. It will be roadkill. It will be roadkill of ocelot. It will be more traffic accidents, people killed, people maimed. And that's all I got right now, but I'm going to give you guys a whole lot more on paper.
A complete environmental impact statement needs to be conducted before any increase in the number of launches is allowed. The lack of scientific analysis of impacts for the first launches has led to a haphazard approach to environmental and community accountability. How can it possibly be assumed that an increase to 25 launches and landings per year will result in a finding of no significant impact? One example of this lack of interest in monitoring impacts is that TCEQ is continuing to allow, without a required permit, launches using a deluge system that discharges industrial wastewater into the wetlands surrounding a launch site. This means that no one was actually responsible for collecting comprehensive baseline data on water quality and macro and micro invertebrate populations. How can accurate comparisons be made to the post-launch data, even if it were being collected? As the experimental process continues with an increase to 25 launches and landings per year, how much water will be used and released into the wetlands in violation of NEPA? Since the lower Rio Grande Valley is experiencing a drought, how is it responsible to allow this secretive water use practice? If a full EIS were conducted, we would at least know what we're getting into and mitigation would be required. By only relying on the less than complete pictures painted with out-of-date environmental assessments, the public is misled to believe that everything is probably fine. The FAA is shirking its responsibility by not preparing a complete EIS that would include determining the long-term effects of depleting the food sources for native and migratory animals, changes in nesting behaviors of local and migratory bird populations, extreme sound on the hearing of wildlife species, and the effect of extreme sound, including from sonic booms, on property. Here's what we do know. The constitutional right to beach access is already being limited and will become more restricted. Without a permit, great quantities of water are being used in ways that contaminate the wetlands. The quantity of greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollutants produced during testing and launches is high. The scope of the project has changed many times since the original proposal was approved, yet the oversight and monitoring has not changed. The danger of locating an expanding space experiment near a proposed LNG terminal has not been examined. And without a full EIS that would include mitigation, the FAA is shirking its responsibility to its constituents. And one more thing, who is watching what's going on at the Massey testing site down the road? Is there an assessment being carried out for that industrial operation? I'd really like to know. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Hinojosa. I live in Brownsville. I am opposed to SpaceX launching any rockets on Boca Chica Beach. They especially should not be allowed to launch up to 25 times per year. I urge the FAA to reject SpaceX's proposal. And I urge the FAA to conduct a full environmental impact statement. The FAA also should completely restart this entire review process because the FAA did a terrible job of hosting public hearings and a comment period. First of all, at the last minute, the FAA canceled the hearings in August, which was a terrible way to involve the public. Then at the last minute last week, the FAA canceled the public meetings for Port Isabel. Residents in Port Isabel need to have public meetings. They have been repeatedly disrupted and sacrificed for SpaceX operations, which is wrong. Residents there have felt their homes shake, their home foundations crack. SpaceX has sent a plume of dust on the schools, on communities there in Port Isabel. The FAA must restart and allow public meetings in Port Isabel and other communities in Cameron County. And you all should host an actual public hearing. Requiring residents to go one-on-one with a stenographer is a sham of a public meeting. We need to be able to hear the concerns of our residents, of our neighbors. That's how we become better informed about what's going on with SpaceX. And also, these presentation slides should have been in Spanish The entire draft EA should be in Spanish. And you all are once again cutting corners to give everything away to SpaceX. That's a problem. You all the FAA did a bad job of reviewing the draft EA last time, several years ago for SpaceX, and that's why there are multiple lawsuits. There's a lawsuit right now against the FAA by community organizations here. There's lawsuits against the TCEQ for allowing SpaceX to temporarily illegally dump in our coastal areas. There are multiple legal challenges going on right now because SpaceX is actively disrupting our way of life. We are a low-income, brown, indigenous community, and we refuse to be repeatedly sacrificed by SpaceX. Using us as a testing site is environmental racism. Thank you.
All right. Hello. I would like to start off by thanking the FAA for approving every launch flight from Starhopper to now full stack flights. We're about to have 7 flights now. All right, here are my thoughts and concerns on the 25 launch cadence. First off, SpaceX has spent $9+ million of RGV goods and services since 2023. 3,400 full-time employees and contractors, and 21,400 plus local community jobs generated by SpaceX. Lastly, this year, expecting 99 million generated by SpaceX if launches continue. Here are my concerns. Throughout these 5 years of SpaceX being here, the main concerns of the 25 launch cadence, besides a plume of smoke, which I know that can be mitigated already with the flame trench, I've heard it'll be mostly the noise, as others have said already. And what I mean by that is the vibration. Friends that I know said to me their property has seen cracks on their houses with the Starship full stack being upgraded. I hope there is mitigation for that in any way. As for the water deluge, I've been hearing complaints about that too. Brownsville should make a water line to Boca Chica so water vehicles can stop coming out every launch to refill. And one last point, I hope, and SpaceX, if you're listening, I hope you eventually upgrade Orbital Pad 1 similar to Pad 2, a flame trench. It's long overdue of that happening. But as for the comments on the road closures, no. The biggest problem with the road closures wasn't back in 2021 with the Starship launches. Now that's been moved to Massey's, where they now test out the ships. The closures now are for testing the booster. And after that, launch. I have not seen excessive closures at all. So those are complete lies. The beach is absolutely available for everybody. But shout out to the FAA, local SpaceX spectators, Lab Padre, NASA Spaceflight with 24/7 coverage. And shout out to the SpaceX Boca Chica employees and contractors. Thank you. I approve of the 25 launch cadence, and good luck working on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is it's not a waiver of 106. This is a notice upon all who are present and those that makes decision in continuous violations of international laws in the Pacific. For our treaties, international treaties between the United States and the Kingdom of Hawaii. So I'm be given notice under McGirth versus State of Oklahoma for treaty violations. Demand to cease and desist any and all activities within our domain immediately. And I appreciate taking the notice serious. Also, I really appreciate the technology of bridging, Hawaii, bridging our Earth to space. That was once upon a time, it was a childhood dream to be part of that family. And I hope that the technology bridges a more lesser adverse impact upon humanity, and appreciate the time.
Thank you, Pam. So I want to stand with all the people who called for preparation of a full environmental impact statement, more specifically, one that looks away from Hawaii and the mid-Pacific for a space debris landing field. In-person public hearings must be held on all populated Hawaiian islands. Hawaii residents threatened by space debris fallout as proposed have a right to be heard in person. Consultations with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, the sole agency responsible for protecting Hawaiian rights, must also be included. Hawaiian monk seals in Hawaii are one of the most endangered pinnipeds in the world, which are purportedly protected by the Endangered Species Act, the Marine Mammal Protections Act, and state laws. The area where monk seals reside must be avoided at all costs. Do not allow disposal at sea. Disposal of industrial waste in the ocean is unlawful under the United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea. The Hawaiian Kingdom remains a sovereign state under a prolonged belligerent U.S. military occupation. The unlawful prolonged U.S. occupation of the Hawaiian Kingdom will reach 132 years in 4 days, coincidentally, the date that the comment period closes. The incremental EA approach is a joke, and targeting Hawaii in the mid-Pacific as a space debris landing zone could be considered a war crime. My heart goes out to the people impacted by this project, and I propose that Mr. Musk offer some compensation to the impacted communities, perhaps at a rate of $2.5 million per impacted family. If they would like to relocate, they can use those funds to do so. Thank you for your time.
So this is another one coming from Hawaii. I noticed that a lot of the partner agencies listed in the slideshow were from Texas, where the launch site is. My heart does go out to everyone in Boca Chica and the surrounding areas, but if there are going to be spacecraft disposed of in Hawaiian waters, then there need to be Hawaiian partner agencies listed there as well. It does not seem like anywhere in the Pacific is being considered as a partner or as someone to even be asked. There needs to be a biological consideration. It said that biological resources are important, and yet these waters are migratory routes for humpback whales, which are endangered, and several other endangered species, such as the green turtle, the green sea turtle, and like many other people mentioned before, the monk seal. These waters are also culturally sacred to the Native Hawaiian people, and we, as white colonizers, have done enough to destroy everything important and valuable to them. There were also no mitigation measures mentioned in the slideshow. So how are we as the public supposed to understand what's happening to all of these spacecraft that are just landing in the ocean? How are we being informed about the impacts? What is being done here is not enough. There need to be in-person meetings for this in the state of Hawaii, and they don't need to be canceled like it seems like the FAA has done to all of these other Texas communities. And that is all of my comment for now. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I'm Dave Rainey. I'm a resident of Honolulu, and I'm a senior advisor to the Sierra Club's National Marine Team. Sierra Club will be submitting comments on the draft EA. But for now, I'll just mention that one of the concerns that I have as a Hawaii resident is over the so-called disposal of spacecraft in Hawaiian waters. And for debris from a SpaceX vehicle to enter the waters of Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument would appear to violate Article 5 of the Monument's Proclamation, which states the following: under regulated activities within Papahanaumokuakea, number 5, discharging or depositing any material or other matter into special preservation areas or the Midway Atoll Special Management Area, except vessel engineering, cooling water, weather duct runoff, or vessel engine exhaust. Any of those other materials would be prohibited within Papahanaumokuakea. So the whole concept of landing, making any landings, especially disposal landings within that Marine National Monument should be not considered. It should be eliminated from discussion. Thank you.
Hi. Avelina mai ka ko me ke aloha o mai ni aloha kini maka ko uinoa he kupu wau o Hawaii nei o Anahola Kauai ku Onahanau. Hello, my name is Maine Kinimaka. I am a descendant of Hawaii nei. I am a native Hawaiian. I'm here to strongly oppose the dumping of space rocket debris in a sacrifice zone surrounding Papahanaumokuakea, the Pacific Island Heritage Marine Monument, and the main Hawaiian Islands. I'm here to bring up the cultural factors within this proposed debris dumping, which are continuously overlooked in nearly all attempts to colonize and extract resources from Hawaii and its surrounding and connecting oceans. Firstly, I'd like to send my condolences to the people of Boca Chica and also send thanks to the previous commenter, Linda Williams. Linda did the due diligence to read your extensive materials regarding this proposal, and I agree that this amount of documentation to read through and to understand under such a short timeline for the average person living in Hawaii is an intentional distraction and another hoop for the public to jump through. I demand improved and further public visibility on this urgent and important matter to Hawaii nei. I urge you to extend your period of public comment to assure all residents of Hawaii's voices are heard and the full scope of your project is understood by all. I demand that you would take accountability and host in-person public meetings on all islands of Hawaii without canceling them, so you can see the faces of people whose lives that you're putting at threat. I demand that the FAA carry out a full and detailed environmental impact statement for the proposed area of dumping, which they have illegally refused to do. It is unlawful to dump such industrial debris within the proposed oceans under the ruling of the United Nations. I demand full public consultations in Hawaii with the Hawaii institutions, including the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, who is a co-trustee and a manager of Papahanaumokuakea. And for the cultural and environmental factors, which must be included in any assessment, as a Kanaka Oiwi, as a native Hawaiian, we want to know, where are you gathering your cultural information from? This proposed area of Papahanaumokuakea is an extreme, important cultural and environmental place with heritage and history for Hawaiians and all of Hawaii. And any cultural assessment done properly in this area would easily disprove this being a decent site for dumping debris. Lastly, I urge you to check your privilege as you dare to set out to colonize another planet of our universe, while those of your very own species, your fellow human beings, are on this planet right now, still suffering the effects and exploitations of your American colonization. Heva eola Hawaii.
Okay. Thank you to the previous speaker. I am also from Hawaii. I am not a native Hawaiian, but I am a person whose spirit is in the right place for this nation. Some of the comments I have are the fact that I'm curious. I know that the SpaceX project has not followed and taken care of a lot of demands that the FAA, the environmental impact reports and stuff did. Musk has repeatedly ignored and been fined over and over again. We're dealing with heavy metals, we're dealing with garbage. One speaker said that they're reusable, the only reusable rocket. Well, that's not really true because we have the Space Center that is orbiting, and we go back and forth to that quite a bit, and we can now land, back on the United States. But who makes the arbitrary decision that this particular section of this rocket is no longer good, and then we just dump it in the ocean? And when we dump it in the ocean, we're dealing with heavy metals, we're dealing with oils, hydrocarbons, oxygens, all the stuff that it takes to put that thing out there in the first place. Hawaii has a very, very fragile ecosystem. We have endangered monk seals, green turtles, sea turtles. Our monuments have been a national heritage UNESCO heritage site since back in like the 1980s. This is not anything new for this island. We need to be following the money, and if Texas is bringing in $99 million a year, then that's a good way to bribe the people whose windows are breaking and their foundations are cracking. And every single person that talked from Texas today, my heart goes out to you because you are being exploited. And yes, some of you are working for SpaceX and you're making a living, but it doesn't sound like it's a very healthy living, and it needs to be looked at. We do not want 5 ships taking off from a dock or landing here. We don't want 25 ships taking off from a dock or landing here. This EIR and all of the environmental stuff needs to be updated. It was done in 2010, 2012, 14. This is going into 2025. A lot of things have changed on this planet in the last 15 or 20 years, and that's not being considered. I also think it's highly disrespectful that the 2 meetings that were held in Texas were arbitrarily canceled, and that this one has been notified kind of under the radar, and there's very few Hawaiians that really know that this is coming down the pike for us. So we don't let people study the stars here. Mauna Kea has a very strong contingency, and I have a feeling that doing anything with SpaceX here will be the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Aloha. My name is Stephanie Freed. Hang on, I'm trying to get away from the echo. And I'm a former alternate member of the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Coral Reef Ecosystem Reserve Advisory Council. I'm also a member of the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Hui, but I'm speaking in my personal capacity. For the past 25 years, like many others, I have been engaged in establishing the strong protection for biodiversity and Kanaka Maoli Native Hawaiian cultural rights in Papahanaumokuakea. My primary point is to demand a full environmental impact statement, one that involves, of course, consultations on every island of Hawaii. The region of Papahanaumokuakea is of enormous and unique biodiversity and cultural heritage. And it's in the middle of key pathways for highly endangered migratory seabirds and cetaceans. And it's been protected in a bipartisan manner by 4 US presidents over the span of the past 100 years. More recently, over the past several decades, a wide range of Kanaka Maoli community representatives and fishers and cultural practitioners have made over 110,000 public comments in support of these protections at over 30 hearings and 100 meetings. The 3 main points I wish to make are, of course, that a full environmental impact assessment must be carried out, environmental impact statement must be produced in order to meet NEPA requirements. It's outrageous that you require an EIS in Florida, but not for Hawaii. In addition, the proposed action takes place not only in Texas, and again, our heart goes out to the speakers from Texas. The action takes place not only there, but also in the waters surrounding Hawaii, surrounding the main Hawaiian Islands where everyone lives, surrounding the Papahanaumokuakea Marine Monument, surrounding the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Coral Reef Ecosystem Reserve, the State Refuge, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuges, and the Pacific Islands Heritage National Marine Monument. Again, with no EIS. And the map that is shown of this, it looks like there's a magical line drawn around these protected areas where space junk is going to fall on either side of these areas and magically will not fall. It magically will not fall on the protected areas. This just does not make sense. I fully reject this proposal and oppose the expansion of these so-called hazardous landing zones. In addition, having consultations in Texas with on an impact on things that will have an impact in Hawaii on our fishers and on the migratory pathways of highly endangered species.
Thank you.
The only public consultation is in on a weekday during the middle of the day.
I appreciate your comment. Unfortunately, we are at time here. If I could ask one favor, could you please spell your name for our court reporter?
Yes, my name is Stephanie, Stephanie, Fried, Fried.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your comment.
Yeah, I want to follow up with what all of the Kanaka Maoli from Hawaii have been saying. I would like to know what you are doing to provide Hawaiians and local Hawaii stakeholders with full environmental impact assessment, because from your presentation, it's not very clear that you did any at all. In fact, from what you said, if I'm recalling correctly from the side, you said it was just, oh, it's fine. It's not actually. So again, toxic waste, toxic metals, all of these components are actually really, really harmful to the marine environment, particularly the deep sea corals that are located on the Hawaiian Islands and in the surrounding area. These corals are actually very long-lived and extremely fragile and very, very, very sensitive to a number of disturbances, including, of course, climate change, but also to toxic marine debris, as well as physical damage. So what are you doing to guarantee the well-being of these corals that are actually thousands of feet beneath the sea? I really don't think that you're capable of actually providing an environmental impact assessment, actually, for the deep sea, as well as for the Hawaiian Islands. I also demand, actually, that you hold public hearings on all of the Hawaiian Islands and do not cancel these meetings to inform public stakeholders. Additionally, my heart goes out to everybody who's already been impacted in Texas. You guys have really, really suffered the consequences of unfettered capitalism. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Okay. My name is Gloria Thomas, and I'm a resident in Brownsville, Texas. And I would like the FAA to reject SpaceX's proposal to launch 25 times a year, because the assessment for environmental impacts, public health and safety, and cultural impacts are inaccurate. There's also not enough assessment of the cumulative effects of a series of launches. The FAA should, at the very least, conduct an environmental impacts study. There's also no consultation with the Carrizo Comocrudo tribe of Texas, who consider Boca Chica Beach sacred lands. It is required for you to consult with tribal entities. There's been no response to the demands of community members to address concerns for public safety from the previous launches, or to make Boca Chica Beach accessible for recreational activities. As it stands now, the launch site is nearby several sensitive wildlife habitats, and it is a responsibility of the state, city, and all national agencies to protect them. The pristine habitats on Boca Chica Beach have already been damaged by previous launches. A fire test has already burned 60 acres of wildlife habitat. This caused 60 acres of vegetation to be burned, 60 acres of potentially endangered species to be burned, migratory species to be burned in this area. That is a significant impact. The previous launches, as many have spoken, have shaken people's houses, and this is a significant impact to public safety, especially to elderly residents who could residents, to disabled residents, to children and pets. There have already been incidences of people falling from the launches. It has triggered PTSD symptoms and caused painful migraines in people. There are people with chronic illnesses, and the launches have triggered spasms. I'd also like to note, like the other commenters, that this review process has to be accessible to the public.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Aloha, this is Molly Collins from Honolulu, Hawaii. And I would like to say that SpaceX has absolutely no cultural or environmental viability, and the program needs to be shut down immediately. Mahalo.
Thank you for your comment.
Hey, my name is Bijang Slab, and I'm a First Nations person and sailor from Australia. I've been a cultural consultant and work closely with government organisations in conservation and humanitarian aid and projects, around Australia and the islands of the Pacific Ocean. And I've seen the first-hand impacts of the islands and the damages that can be done not just to the native people, but the native wildlife and environment that the people are still relying on and have a connection to today. The people used the environment to navigate using the stars, marine wildlife, migratory bird species, and the weather observations, which SpaceX are putting in jeopardy. And, we've always followed the ways passed down from our ancestors to protect the connection and the future of the Earth and everything in it. How are we going to keep that connection when we don't even talk to the local people in the islands? So yeah, that's all I got to say is we just need more cultural contact and representation, and just to look after the Earth.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, yes. I am living in Brownsville, Texas. I've been here for almost 10 years. I am from Laredo, Texas, so I've mostly lived most of my life in South Texas. I've mostly lived next or really close to the Rio Grande River. And the Rio Grande River is one of the endangered rivers in the United States. When I moved here, I saw the river Rio Grande Delta for the first time, where the Rio Grande flows into the Gulf. I learned of the very special ecosystem, the migration of the birds and the butterflies, the endangered species, the ocelot, the plumado falcon. This is a very special and beautiful place. And I love living here. I have stayed because this is the most beautiful part of Texas, I think, for me. The Gulf is sacred. The Rio Grande is sacred, and I oppose with my whole heart an increase in launches for SpaceX. Since I've lived here, I have not seen the quality of life of people here improve. The city government of Brownsville is promoting SpaceX as economic development. The economic arms of the city is promoting SpaceX as economic development. The county is also promoting it. There are corrupt politicians that are making life-changing decisions for us. And in the first place, we have to remember that most of us here did not vote or did not approve for SpaceX to even be here. SpaceX should not even be here. It is worsened our quality of life here in the Mexican border. We're a border city with mostly Mexican immigrants. I also lastly want to really give so much appreciation to all the people from Hawaii, like so much gratitude to y'all and solidarity because the people in South Texas are suffering because of this decision made by very few people and not consulting the majority of the community. And so I will continue to be in solidarity with y'all in Hawaii. And please let me know, reach out to me. My name is Nancy Guevara. If y'all want to connect and continue this work together in solidarity. Thank you. Mahalo.
Hi. Aloha mai kako o Kapilani Spencer ko Inoa. I am from Mokuokeawe, and I am here in testimony, and I want to propose a declaration in support of NWHI Lahui against SpaceX debris dumping in Papahanao, Mokuakea. We, the Undersigned, stand in unwavering opposition to SpaceX proposed plan to dump debris from its Starship spacecraft in the waters surrounding Papahanao, Mokuakea Marine National Monument. Papahanao, Mokuakea, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is more than just a collection of islands and reefs. It is a sacred aina of profound cultural and spiritual significance to the Native Hawaiians. This vast ocean sanctuary, encompassing over 1.5 million square kilometers, is home to an unparalleled diversity of life and plays a crucial role in the cultural and spiritual well-being of our people. SpaceX proposal to discard space debris in these sacred waters is a blatant disregard for the sanctity of Papahanao, Mokuakea. This area holds deep cultural and spiritual significance for Native Hawaiians, embodying our connection to our ancestors, our deities, and the natural world. Dumping debris here is an act of desecration and war crimes. The delicate marine ecosystem at Papahanao, Mokuakea is home to a vast array of endangered species, including the Hawaiian monk seal, the green sea turtle. Debris pose a significant threat to these species through entanglement, ingestion, and habitat destruction. The health and well-being of our people is also a threat. The health of the ocean directly impacts the livelihoods of cultural practices of Native Hawaiians. Fishing, cultural practices, and the spiritual connection to the ocean are all threatened by this reckless proposal. We demand that SpaceX withdraw its proposal and pursue responsible and sustainable alternatives for the disposal of its space debris. We call upon all decision makers to uphold the sacredness of Papahanao, Mokuakea, and prioritize the protection of this irreplaceable natural and cultural treasure for generations to come. We stand united with NWHI Lahui in this fight to protect our sacred aina. As a proposal, I'd like to find solution, and maybe Mr. Musk, maybe he would like to dump it in his backyard, or maybe in the Florida, the Gulf of Florida. I think Trump's from there, isn't he? But anyway, that concludes my testimony. Mahalo.
I'm here. Hello, can y'all hear me? Hello? Okay, I'm gonna assume you can. Wait, all right, I'm just gonna go for it, assuming you can hear it. Hopefully my eggs don't burn. Wait, are we? I see the timer. Okay. Anyway, good evening. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's shown such beautiful solidarity, especially those from Hawaii. This has been really awesome. My name's Elliot Trahan. I am an educator in Port Isabel, Texas. I live in Brownsville, and I am speaking on so many things. First of all, to condemn the whole way this process has happened. It's inaccessibility, it's the rushed nature of it, the way a lot of it's just based on like legislating and gaslighting, and also to call for not only a comprehensive cultural and environmental review that's independently done, but also just a cancellation of the permit based on the grounds that the people who are receiving this or the entities receiving this permit is one that has shown like time and time again that it has no respect for the law or for any of the principles behind this law of actually protecting in the environment. But speaking from my personal experience, educating students who are impacted by this and just hearing their stories of, and some of them are kind of funny, like a student complained to me a couple months ago that his Legos, because he had a Lego set on a shelf, and the launch shook his Lego set off the shelf and the Legos shattered. And not that, like in the grand scheme of things, the Lego is not a huge deal, but just the fact that it can have that kind of impact, I think is just outlines the fact that when we talk about 25 launches a year, we're talking about 25 human-induced earthquakes a year that are also dumping toxic deluge water and, of course, toxic waste now in the Pacific on places near Hawaii. Oh my God, I'm almost at a minute. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, what am I trying to say? So many things. I want to acknowledge that as much as this process is kind of made official and legalized through all these official processes and 1,000-page long documents, there's also a very human element to it. Everybody in the FAA is a human. There are humans reading these, and there are humans that have the willpower to decide how they want this to go. And there are humans who I believe if there's will within the FAA to push this through, they can word these documents however they want to try to justify it. It might be based on reasoning that I would personally find false, but they can do that. So I want to appeal to the humans that are going to read my comment, to the humans who are going to read every comment here, and just ask you what side you're on. Like, what is your goal? Whose side are you on? And if you're on the side of humanity and solidarity and just all these beautiful things in the world, I'm asking you to read these comments and do what's in your power to resist whatever pressure is being put on you to go through with these proposals that are clearly a sham. And I could say more, but that's my time. So thank y'all.
Aloha mai kākou, o wau o hello ke kune au no ko mau kupuna, no ke ia aina o Hawaii, a me nā hanauna e hiki mai ana. I am here as a Kanaka Oiwi to oppose the project SpaceX, to strongly oppose its dumping site of its rocket debris in a sacrificial zone surrounding Papahanaumokuakea. I don't understand what Mr. Musk does not understand, that our ocean, our islands hold a very deep cultural significance to us as Kanaka Oiwi. I think it is very unjust. I think it is very sneaky. It's very peaky of him to not hold public consultations with the people. Let me remind you that we are still a Hawaiian kingdom being illegally occupied by the US government and the US military. What you guys are doing is illegal, and it is flat out, no questions asked. I think that there's no thought of us as Kanaka, as human. There's no thought of our marine life. We fish off of our oceans. There are significant animals that surround the Pacific Islands, like our Hawaiian monk seal, the honu. There is no thought. It is very shallow. It is very greedy. And I believe that we allow these billionaires to fund these projects for their capital greed because it's a fun project. We are descendants of these Aina, of the stars. We have been studying these stars. We have been studying the planet. I don't know what's new. If Mr. Musk would like to continue his fun projects, like Anake Kopi'olani said, maybe he should dump his waste in his backyard. I also demand that the FAA carry out a full detailed environmental impact statement, and also that they are fully transparent and have public consultations with Hawaii, the people of Hawaii, and with OHA. Elikime ke olalo ako kako mau kupuna. Ahike ke aloha aina hopeloa. Eia no kako a mauloa aku. This is not dying, not to the last aloha aina. We are here and we will continue to be here. For all my other Indigenous people, we stand with you. And I hope you guys break the shame to get out and to speak up against the unjust things that have been happening to us from our colonizers. Mahalo.
Very good. Thank you. I would like to give public comment for the support of developments at Starbase and support the goals of bringing satellite communications to the most remote part of the globe, including areas in dire, vulnerable humanitarian need and underprivileged communities that will improve their access to education and self-sufficient economic opportunities. Something SpaceX will be able to do faster, more affordably with these developments, with the larger rockets, to bring down the cost of communications and expand global coverage, along with future possible scientific research discoveries and developments with these larger rockets getting equipment into space, and the possibility of returning men and putting the first women on the moon. That will be possible with Starship developments. Consideration should also be given for multi-vehicle simulus launches from the 2 launch towers and simulus return super heavy rockets to the 2 launch towers at Starbase. Consideration should also allow for larger rockets designs than the one currently in use. And I also want to thank the local and global community for contributing to advancing global communications and humanity's continuing exploration of space and scientific discovery by making whatever sacrifice and accepting the inconvenience they may experience. Your tolerance and contribution to advancing for all mankind is appreciated by the whole global community who are or will benefit from these developments. I hope SpaceX will give fair consideration to all the community's concerns, and I thank their engineers and workers at Starbase and all around the world working on this project. That concludes my public comment. Thank you.
Aloha, thank you.
We didn't hear you.
A lot of what I've been feeling has already been said. I don't want to take up too much of your time. One thing I haven't heard about is the sustainability goals set out for here in Hawaii. It's called the Aloha Plus Challenge. And there are 7 goals that the Hawaiian natives have come up with to sustain our lands. And also for the rest of the planet, rest of the globe, the United Nations has set up, and our President Barack Obama had signed off on them in 2015. And these goals are set up until the year 2030. And there's nothing in these goals about space travel. And I feel like it's done nothing but damage humanity. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And if someone cannot hear the side of the people that needs this to stop, our humanity is in grave danger. And I'm too emotional to continue, but I just feel this is a selfish act on Elon Musk. We have NASA. I don't even believe NASA is behind his projects. Aloha. Aloha.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Anayanse Garza, and I'm a tribal member of the Carrizo-Comecrudo tribe of Texas. And what I have to say is that we cannot have peace at an intergalactic encounter if we are not at peace with Mother Earth by respecting the integrity of Mother Earth. I question the legality of SpaceX presence and operation on Boca Chica Beach and in close proximity to our sacred site of Garcia Pasture, which is also a World Heritage Site. Rather than speculate on the good deeds SpaceX might have in store, we should focus on the facts and what we know to be true, which is the devastating path and selfish profit hoarding of billionaires. There has been no significant benefit with this venture, and there has been a lack of transparency and damages to health and environmental damages, both natural and to the natural and also built environment. There is a need for prior and informed consent, which is a cornerstone of protecting Indigenous rights and ensuring ethical environmental practices. This principle is rooted in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and it asserts that we have the right to freely give and withhold our consent to projects that affect our lands, our territories, our lifeways, our life sources, and our cultural heritage. There is a deep cultural and spiritual connection with our tribal people and the environment, with Boca Chica and with Garcia Pasture, which are all in that area, and which are sacred to the Carrizo-Comecrudo tribe of Texas, and are in danger because of SpaceX and because of proposed LNG build out that is all there lumped together in that same area in one huge explosive, potentially explosive site. And I would also like to bring attention to the need for the in-person public meetings and also more of the Zoom meetings without cancellation and with months of notice ahead of time so that people's time can be respected, as we know that our community is working class and we need to be able to make those plans, and our time is just as valuable as any billionaire's time. The principle of informed consent aligns with Indigenous sovereignty and our self-determination, and it should be respected. I oppose the rocket infrastructure due to its negative impact on fragile and sensitive ecosystems within the area. And I would like for there to be an acknowledgement that Native Original peoples have been offering insights into how to protect biodiversity and critical habitats, but we have not been given the weight that is necessary.
Our time limit. So I will go ahead and ask if you have additional comments you want to make, please feel free to include those comments in a written comment or through regulations.gov.
Aloha. I'm Donna Sterling. I live at Kahiki Nui, Moku on Maui, and it's a homestead. I'm not for the 25 launches, and I had questioned Elon Musk's experimenting technicalities of this rocket when we know through social media that there's Galactic Alliance that have machines that can, in a blink of an eye, go to other
I apologize.
planets.
It might just be me, but you cut out, Donna.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to repeat. So can you hear me now? Hello.
I'm still having problems hearing you.
Okay.
Donna, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on mute, but go ahead and raise your hand again and we'll come back to you in just a minute. All right,
I think we're having problems. I can hear the speaker, and I think Pam might be having an issue. Pam, maybe try rebooting again. Apologies for these issues. I apologize. Donna Sterling, I think if you want to go ahead and restart comments, we can take you from the top. And I apologize for that. It seems to be Pam's having issues with her connection tonight.
Okay. Okay, I hear you. Thank you very much. Mahalo. I want to say where I left off was, I don't understand with the technology that we have in front of us today in this year 2025 with Galactic Alliance using other methods of transporting people to Mars. And I know Elon wants to go to Mars. I understand that. But the intention of Elon to go to Mars to gather, and I'm for Google, I'm for the Starlinks and the satellites, but he's got to realize you've got an intention to move forward humanity with technology. I love it, but not at the expense of your indigenous people, especially in the Pacific Rim, where our canoe Hokulea will be sailing the next couple of years. And that's not the way you conduct space travel by hurting humanity here on Honua. I strongly suggest you go back to the drawing board, Elon, and come up with a galactic alliance, just have discussions with them and ask them how you can do this without impacting humanity. And I can tell you that the debris that we have tasted in the Limu on Kaho'olawe, since it got bombed 50 years, the limu kohu does not taste like limu kohu. That's a seaweed from Kaho'olawe. It tastes like metal. So there is impact. But Elon needs to go back and go to the drawing board. There are better ways to serve humanity. You don't pollute Earth. Thank you.
We can
Aloha.
hear you.
I'm testifying from Hawaii to oppose this short-sighted project that will have lasting negative impacts for generations on our oceans and the people who live in the communities most impacted in Texas and near the launch zones. A quick peek at the mission of the FAA, and the very first value listed is safety. How does dumping toxic waste into a sensitive ecosystem fulfill this value of safety? You have a responsibility, or a kuleana, as we say in Hawaii, to the public to protect the public resources. That includes our environment. You do not have any responsibility to fulfill the profit margins of SpaceX or the whims of the richest man in the world. This expansion of the landing zone into Papahanaumokuakea is a complete rejection of your duty to protect the public trust. This sensitive ecosystem is home to rare and endangered species like the green sea turtle, Hawaiian monk seal, as well as 14 million seabirds representing 22 unique species that breed and nest there. It's also used as a local fishing area and a migration route for the humpback whale. Hawaii stakeholders have never been consulted in this EIS process. And while I'm not affiliated with any of the organizations tasked with protecting these areas, I'm pretty sure a lawsuit will be imminent if you do not change course and correct this. Kanaka do not mess around when it comes to protecting our aina and our oceans. We aren't scared of the richest man in the world, and we will fight this with every tool that we have. Our community has been victim to so much short-sighted, toxic, and hazardous exposure in the name of innovation, from the bombing of Ko'olawe to the poisoning of water in Red Hill. These are just two examples in a long list of experiments that we are still suffering from the effects of. Ko'olawe's water table is destroyed forever, and Oahu's largest aquifer is poisonous. You poison your own military members. We have no reason to trust this project, especially since zero attempts have been made to engage with our community. In summary, I oppose the dumping of SpaceX rocket debris in a sacrifice zone surrounding Papahanaumokuakea, the Pacific Islands Heritage Marine Monument, and the main Hawaiian Islands. I demand the FAA carry out a full and detailed environmental impact statement, which they have illegally refused to do. And I demand full public consultations in Hawaii and with the Hawaii institutions, including the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, who is a co-trustee and manager of Papahanaumokuakea. And now that I've finished my pre-written comments, I really want to appeal to the humanity of whoever is making this decision. We only have one Earth. And all of these experiments of military exploration because of the whims of some billionaires who want to play space is just, it's so short-sighted. And we will suffer the consequences of this if you don't do the right thing.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
Thanks for the opportunity to provide comments here. And hearing all of this great testimonies, I feel like I'm standing in the presence and the shoulders of giants. I live in rural South Kona, and I've never heard about this SpaceX proposal until like 2 days ago. I'm a concerned American, a citizen of Hawaii. It's absurd that the FAA has determined that there'll be no impact for increased trials, launches, and dropping of exploded or expended rocket boosters and or rocket carried modules into the waters surrounding Hawaii, those little lines, imaginary lines drawn on a map. The FAA, a U.S. federal agency, approved the creation of a corporate space industrial garbage dump that stretches from the northwestern Hawaiian Islands Marine Refuge, Papahanaumokuakea, to the west coast of mainland USA, a corridor that stretches across approximately half of the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on Earth. and not all of which, one should note, the U.S. owns or controls. I also would like to know how the atmosphere will recover from each of these additional massive launch and trial burns, along with the massive discharges from those burns. To me, this expansion and the federal approvals are a perfect example of American incorporated arrogance in the abuse and destruction of Earth's resources and our environment using the sham political covers of somehow advancing our civilization and providing economic and consumer growth. Yeah, while also creating massive profits for a few. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity to provide our comments.
Okay, awesome. Hello, I'm a Brownsville resident, and I firstly just wanted to thank everyone for coming in and sharing their experience. I've experienced earthquakes before, including the earthquake that cracked the Washington Monument. The trembles that SpaceX creates are easily comparable and arguably worse, especially with the increased frequency of launches. SpaceX is a project that has very little benefit to the local community, especially when ecotourism and the unique avian life and butterflies that live here draw in visitors from around the world. SpaceX not only negatively impacts locals, but the global community as well. Increased launches means increased CO2 emissions. We know this causes climate change. And as first responders and civilians in LA face larger and more intense wildfires than before, we know that projects like this put us all at risk. Another part of SpaceX plans are to nuke Mars. You can Google it. This is open information. They think that that's going to make it habitable. And I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but the negative impacts of this project, they're going to have negative impacts on Earth, also possibly Mars, obviously South Texas, Hawaii, Matamoros, that's just across from Brownsville. And these things should all be included in the ELS. And I just wanted to say South is a very beautiful place. And I don't know, I invite all of you to come and enjoy the public lands here because it's really wonderful. And it's sad what SpaceX is, potentially taking away. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to echo some of the sentiments, including those of Ms. Kanimaka, Ms. Capillary Spencer, Mr. Kyohu, all well spoken. And I just want to add on to what they're saying that I also vehemently oppose the use of Hawaiian waters for SpaceX debris. The point that they also make about expanding on the time frame for public comment, this is all last minute, too short, and just not adequate for this type of decision to be made. There also needs to be more information provided to the public and provide an open forum in person, not these online Zoom interviews or Zoom forums. And I do want to comment that multiple male voices, such as this Cormac McKay, sound like straight up AI bots. I refuse to believe that that is a real human being spouting whatever nonsense that was just uttered. Anyways, from a
I'm still here.
non-environmental environmental policy, non-environmental lawyer look at things. I'm looking at just like the National Environmental Policy Act, which is the basic national charter for protection of the human environment. It's triggered by any proposal of federal action likely to affect the environment. So I would say FAA approving SpaceX debris in Hawaiian waters would be a direct impact to that environment. And so that's triggered by any major federal action, policy programs, plans, projects. Definition here of major federal action means any action that the agency carrying out such an action determines is subject to federal control and responsibility. So that's right there in these lanes. And so that does require a environmental impact study, which I don't believe is actually being undertaken at this moment in time. I also want to consider the Endangered Species Act. Overall, the purpose is to prevent, the extinction of endangered animals, which many people have commented are surrounding the Hawaiian waters. And then that's also triggered by agency action that may affect the illicit species or habitat, which all surround Hawaiian waters. So, people, sea life, the reefs, Hawaiian Islands are all dependent on a clean ocean. It doesn't take a scientist to understand that spaceship debris will have a substantial negative impact. If you don't care about the environmental impact, then I appeal to financial impacts to the tourist industry in Hawaii. Thousands of people will come here to see the beautiful waters, see the beautiful ocean, to see the reefs, to see the animals, and just dumping space debris is going to completely negatively impact that. So I just want to put it on public record that Elon, just basically what everyone here is thinking. Elon Musk bobs for apples in the toilet and he likes it. That's it.
Hi, I'm speaking here as a historian of spaceflight and the environment, and I stand in solidarity with the Kanaka Maoli and the Ashtokna or Karisako people and the Brownsville and Port Isabel locals. I call on the FAA to reject SpaceX's proposal, and I oppose the increased cadence of the launches. It is really clear that the endangered and threatened species are impacted. The leatherback, the loggerhead, the hawksbill, Queen and Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, birds like the piping plover, the red knot, and the northern palmetto falcon. It is also clear that the launch site causes harm to the human health and the existing physical infrastructures that the locals inhabit. I think it is audacious, in light of the repeated opposition of the locals and the well-documented environmental impacts, to pretend that there are no impacts. And the current plan states no adequate mitigation procedures. Every technology obviously has impacts, and especially in infrastructure like this, and letting it cause harm without even remotely trying to mitigate its impact means you're honestly actively and aggressively contributing to climate change. I also in general oppose the launching from Boca Chica, not only because of the environmental harms, but also because the Ashtokna have made it clear that Boca Chica Beach is the site of their creation story. So to build infrastructure on Ashtokna land and then prevent the Ashtokna from accessing the beach and from practicing their life ways is an act of ongoing colonial oppression. I also demand a complete and detailed environmental impact assessment. And I want to say to those who came on here to claim that the reusable rockets are going to make spaceflight more sustainable, I urge you to reconsider what you think sustainability is. If a technology is operated in a way that causes harm, the ability to use the technology more causes more harm. So by trying to sweep the environmental impacts under the rug, it actually makes it really clear that none of this is about sustainability in the sense of keeping the environment healthy. And also for those of you who are not from the immediately impacted areas and dare to come on here and oppose the communities who are speaking out about the harm they experience, I really recommend that you reflect deeply on your complete moral failure. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Yana Clark, YANACLARK. I represent the AW movement, Aloha Women Experience, and I come here to oppose to the expansion of this project. And beyond that, I would like to suggest a few things to all the mediators and participants here in this conversation. First of all, hashtag rethink Elon Musk, rethink SpaceX. I would like to offer myself as a connection to all the people here talking, representing this movement from Hawaii. And Elon Musk should understand that from now on, he has been touching the heart of the Hawaiian warriors. And I'm not Hawaiian, I'm Brazilian, but I stand with them, supporting this land and supporting the culture in this land. I would like to thank the mediators for sharing all the names of the participants that have raised their hands. It's very important that we have access to the information and the people who are acting and taking action, who are taking action to do something about this world and this community and the preservation of this planet. To all the present talking, please take action in reaching out to my email, yanaclark@gmail.com. I would like to bring my opposition to this specific expansion of this project, that after hearing all the people sharing their experiences with this specific location where Elon Musk, Boca Chica, which seems to me absurd and very painful and very destructive, and in complete opposition to the movement that we need for our planet, humanity, and all the lives that we have in this planet. So I would like to oppose to his expansion, but also to his project with SpaceX and even other projects that Elon Musk is involved with. He has been doing extreme damages in the Amazon forest, poisoning indigenous tribes with heavy metals. And I would like to respond to all the people who defended his projects, that he is actually giving power and communication to the criminals and illegals that are going to the rainforest and Indonesia and giving them the power to communicate. So he is not representing the interests of the people who actually care for the planet. He should be shut down, and he has no interest in humanity. If he has a space project, he should be talking to the whole humanity. The whole planet should be involved if we want to protect the planet from any asteroids.
Thank you, Yana. Your time is up.
Okay, hello, I'm Edward Garcia. I am one of the original peoples of this area, this region, where Boca Chica is located. I will not say the name. Other people have mentioned the name of our people multiple times. I thank you for your support. And but I am not representing my people. That's why I will not mention the name of my people at the moment. I'm not an official representative. I'm speaking on my own behalf. And I also just appreciate everybody who's supporting us and opposing these permits from the FFA for more SpaceX launches. And just to say a little bit about my understanding of our people is that our name and our language means the human beings. Just as many other Native nations, that's what they call themselves. As human beings, I believe that we're here on this earth to take care of this earth. And we, from my understanding from a lot of elders, is that the other species are not resources for us just to consume. They are relatives. We are all interconnected in this life cycle. It's taught in elementary school that this is a life cycle that we live in. It's a circle. We're all interdependent, and so we have a high responsibility as human beings to really respect and take care of the other species. We're the only ones that seem to have the ability to do this kind of destructive activities on this earth. And so again, with that ability comes a high responsibility to really respect the other beings, the other species, and not just the animal and fish and birds, but also the plants and insects and all the species that live. And as has been mentioned multiple times here, is that these rocket launches are devastating to all of these species that have a right to be here as much as we do. And I call upon everybody in FFA, everybody that's supporting these rocket launches, to really look at your responsibility as human beings, to also anybody of the colonization heritage, to this is the time for you to redeem your family heritage and to make those changes in your actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hawaii. I send greetings to my relatives up in Hawaii, and I just want to mention just a few things, because I think that the FAA needs to have its own policy to do its own due diligence instead of having to listen to all the due diligence that comes from some of these corporations. And at the same time, I also want to ask that there be some kind of a EIS, or environmental impact study for Mars and for space, because apparently there's not any, and you are regulating this company to continue doing their damages that they're doing, and we need to demand something for the people that they're going to destroy, just like they're destroying the to the indigenous and the human people of this area. I just want to make sure that you understand that 500 years ago, when we came, when we were here, when you came here and occupied our lands and occupied and invaded our lands, and there was clean water, clean air, and clean land. Now the water's contaminated, and I wish it was just as blue as it is in Hawaii. And so I want to help to be able to speak out for the people in Hawaii and the blue waters that are there. I've been there; it's beautiful. And our area used to be beautiful too, especially around South Padre Island. And it seems like now everybody's listening to a man who's very arrogant and thinks that he has all the answers. And 500 years ago, our knowledge, our science, our way of life was working effectively. This was the paradise. And look what they've done to paradise. The gentrification that he continues to promote is just another way of destroying the land and destroying the animals that are there, all the environment. And I say environment as a subject because the environment is alive. It's not a dead subject that people can come in with their billions and try to kill. It's just another form of genocide. People call it environmental racism. I call it a genocide of the environment. And that includes, all the human beings. They've done it for years here, and they continue to do it. They called this the New World so they could come in and invade it and kill the people and take whatever they could. So I just want to make sure that you understand that you need to have a policy where the FAA itself can start doing the due diligence for themselves. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Max. I just want to start off by saying that I am on the side of SpaceX. And I do also stand with the people in Hawaii. And I would be showing resentment towards SpaceX if Hawaii was in danger. But they are not. Starship has not yet splashed down off the coast of Hawaii. The plans for Flight 1 and 2 of Starship were to splash down the ship next to Hawaii, but neither of the ships unfortunately made it that far to that point. So they never got to that point in time. The ultimate plan for SpaceX is to catch the ship with the launch tower, the ship and the booster. So this ties into the sustainability of just this past 50 years of spaceflight, however long it's been. The way that it has been being done, for lack of better terms, is just to discard the rockets into the ocean. SpaceX plans to make this rocket fully reusable, so there will not be any debris, let alone debris or any danger to Hawaiians. And I do just want to share a little bit of a personal story. I'm from North Carolina. Earlier in 2024, we were devastated by Hurricane Helene. People's houses, neighborhoods, communities just wiped out by the hurricane. And what SpaceX did was they came in and provided Starlink. They provided Starlink terminals and access to Starlink, and it's a high-speed internet. And so I just want to thank SpaceX for that. And also to all the people that are saying they have a little bit of, resentment towards Elon Musk. The FAA does not regulate Elon Musk. They regulate SpaceX, who have, made many mitigations to environmental impact in Brownsville that was regulated by the FAA. And my time is running out, so that's all I have to say. Robert Walsh, I am a real person. I'm not AI. Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kainoa McDonald o Ko'inoa no Maui Maiau, which is my home island of Maui, Hawaii. I serve on the Association of Hawaiians for Homestead Lands, or ALL, a Native Hawaiian Beneficiary Association, or what we call an HBA, under 43 Code of Federal Regulations 4748. As a beneficiary, I represent communities across the Pai'aina, which is Hawaii, and demand engagement with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, who currently oversee the Papahanaumoku Sanctuary and host in-person island-wide meetings under the federal policy, Section 106. Within this federal policy, one of the first questions is, does a federal project with the potential to affect historic properties exist? Yes, 1000%. Give an example that has been given in the past, Mauna Kea Access Road proves that. This report was under the guise to accept public comments for work done in Boca Chica in Texas. We didn't see this till further on. If you actually look into the report, you would really have to know what you're looking for to find it. There's been no listing of Hawaiian partners such as OHA in this FAA report dated November 2024. So many commenters have spoken to having proper Native representation that includes Hawaii. Native Hawaiian water should be off limits. This SpaceX EIS assessment program long-term consequences impacts the ecosystem and should not be made to us to pay economically. Lastly, sounds like Boca Chica has tribal entities being impacted on land already with no compensation. SpaceX, really 60 acres burned with no fund or compensation to assist in any human, structural, or environmental effects due to the landings and launches. So just wanted to go on record, and our organization will also be filing testimony in relation to this testimony today. Mahalo.
Hello, can you, wait, okay,
We
you
can
can
hear
hear
you.
me. Okay, hello, blessings. I am from Portland, Oregon, and I would like to take a moment to thank everyone that has spoken. And I almost feel bad raising my hand because I don't know as much information as everyone else does on this forum. I was aware of this meeting about 2 hours before it started, and I think that is one of the problems I would like to address to the committee, is that with this huge fire that's going on in LA, it just seems like poor timing to like try to roll through a policy that no one has really been talking about. I'm not saying that you have to wait for like any disaster to be over. Like this earth, there's a lot of disasters everywhere, but it just seems like odd timing, and this isn't just like a Hawaiian thing. Like as we've been learning, like Hawaiians have been displaced, and so they are spread out all over this land, and it doesn't seem like there's been given enough time to actually poll and speak to the larger community. To think that one little area, if that is just going to affect one little area when the oceans are all tied together, it's just, that doesn't seem reasonable. It seems like you're trying to burn a bridge to get to like a new paradise, but that's like karmically not reasonable as well. How can you destroy one planet in hopes to make life on another planet? Logistically, that just obviously there's like wanting to push society forward and all of these things, but and killing one sustainable product to enhance society doesn't really actually seem like it's enhancing anything. So grateful that you got Wi-Fi in your community, but I don't know how that helps rebuild an ocean or land that's destroyed. Anyway, so I apologize. I don't have all of the data, but I think that is one of the issues. If we could have more mainstream policies and reports on this, because yeah, like I said, it's not just one little area of land that it affects us all. And I think especially with it being like the West Coast, like LA, like it's by the water, it's like we're all connected on that water area. It should be a collective regional discussion and not something that's being pushed through while half the world is like turned to LA fires at the moment. So, okay, thank you for your time. And I appreciate everyone who has spoken. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, everyone. This is Lupita Sanchez, resident of Brownsville, Texas. I have lived and reside in Brownsville all my life. I want to send messages to and say, I want to mention that Elon Musk has received $19 billion on federal contracts. This does not make the FAA, the TCEQ, and the EPA forced to give any reverence to Elon Musk and these toxic permits. I want to also say that shame on the almost 60 public servants in support of these projects. They are serving at the state and local level. Shame on you. Your job is to protect your residents. And I also want to mention that wealthy people like Elon Musk are predators who use our natural resources and leave us with nothing and then commute to other places. We will not commute because we are in reference and reverence to our death. And I have my people here and I would not commute to any other place. I want to echo the sentiments of people against and opposing the increase of 25 rockets a year, the ones who mentioned about the explosions and the emissions of 2,683 tons of CO2 and the 1.7 tons of toxic waste nitrous oxide, the incinerating of 16 acres of wildlife habitat and the endangerment of at least 5 species that have already been mentioned in previous comments. Also want to mention that Elon Musk is using, or SpaceX is using, at least 5 million of gallons of water each time they have per year. And he has violating this use of industrial water, and he has only received a fine of $1,480. To me, it's like removing a hair of your head. It's nothing compared to the billions of dollars that he owes. Also, for someone who mentioned that there's a $9 million of economic spill, it's nothing compared to the 19 billions of dollars that he's receiving from these federal contracts. I want to say again to the FAA, to the CEQ, and the EPA that their job is to protect the environment, the natural resources, and the quality of life. And I don't see you doing that job.
Thank you for your comments. All right, folks, those are all the individuals who had raised their hand at the time we asked at about 7:50 Central Time. We're going to move on and move towards our next slide, where we're going to review how to provide comments on the revised draft EIA. So as previously discussed, you can also submit comments electronically through regulations.gov using docket ID FAA-2024-2006, or through the U.S. mail addressed to Mrs. Amy Hansen, FAA Environmental Specialist, SpaceX EA, care of ICF, 1902 Weston Metro Plaza, Weston, Virginia 20190. Please make note that the comment period closes January 17th, 2025. You may also subscribe to the project mailing list by visiting our project website. We'll go ahead and drop it into the chat if we haven't already. All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll be adjourning tonight's meeting. Thank you for your participation tonight.